Hello there, this is Rodin, and in this video, essentially what I'll be doing is I'll be showing the brushes that I have made in TVPaint. TVPaint is a great program, but often people don't see the potential in the amazing brush engine it has and what they can do. So I'm gonna be showcasing the ones I've done into a curated brush pack that should be in the description of this video once I am done with it. I think I have a Manga account I can upload it to, so it's probably gonna be in there. I actually used to have there an older version of this brush pack, but I removed it so I could organize myself better and iterate on it. I do say that a lot of these things are iterated on stuff other users from the TVPaint forums did. This is as much a creation of my own as it is a compilation, and a lot of it uses images that I didn't create or, you know, a scan. It's kind of just I just wanted to make a brush pack that I can use every day for all intents and purposes, with, you know, for any side of creative for any type of creative endeavor, essentially. So, see, this is what I mean. I did not create this perspective ruler thing. I did not create this, right? So, but it has functionalities like this, like the perspective one. You can create a bunch of lines. Is good for creating speed lines of sorts. I got one called Mirror Brush, for example. Got A and B picker at the same time. Mirror brush, let me see if I remember what it does. Mirror brush, mirror image brush. Oh, mirror brush is to invert, for example. Let me see if I have something I can use as an example. So, see, this is my brush, right? If I click mirror brush, then it's going to invert it. However, you can play around with this. There's one that if you're doing an animation like this, for example, if you're doing like an animation in this utility section, you can kind of, export it as only a sprite sheet. Got one that exports things as sprite sheets, or there's one that's just called save layers, so you only save one layer once you export your thing. And I think rotate is rotate brush. Actually, yeah, this on, for example, can be very useful if you're just trying to create edges using a specific brush like this one that only goes one way, but then you press the rotate brush function, then you do it. Anyway, so the way it's divided, I've got first the utilities, that the stuff like that I just said, different ways to export, to manipulate, and all that. Then I've got the main, which is normally stuff that you would use the most. At least is what I use the most. Got the hard brush. I got this big soft brush here. In fact, let me just put my thing. Okay, so you can see better now. Got this softer brush. Got soft round, big soft round. I've got, not completely hard round, semi-soft hard round. I got a paint, these ones that are more made for painting, right? Oekaki style. Some other brushes dedicated for painting, also in the utility one. Got these rougher ink brushes. Oops, press another one for mistake. Got these rougher ink brushes here. As you can see, some painting brushes that can take two colors at once. For example, if you go see, there's actually edges to these paintings, because if you go actually check out the brush, you can see the tip here and what it's made out of. For example, if I stamp something in place, you'll see now. Stamp in place, right? This is the brush tip that this brush is using. And you would normally just go here, use the cut brush function, and then you can use anything that you go over as a brush. And then it's all a matter of editing your settings here. Anything from the wet profile to, you know, just all these parameters. And you can even go a bit further. You can even go a bit further and do a full animation. For example, let me see. You would just create like a ball here, just turning on. Okay, and does here, does this, then does this. Oops. Then does this. Then this. I'm not. This is completely random. It's not specific, but I'm just trying to prove a point. Okay, so imagine you have all these drawings, making a little animation. Let's see. Looks like nothing. Doesn't matter, because what you actually want to do is, while these ones are selected, you go over the you go over the area with this cut brush function, and then cut out animation brush, and you say yes. So now, if you see, you're actually using all of those frames to paint with, and that's another thing I did in this collection. As far as I know, TVPaint is the only program that does this. You can even go into the way you want them to be displayed. The frames in your animated brush, like this one says random, for example. There's no rhyme or reason, or loop or ping pong from your frames. Can also, the space between them also is important. But you can mess around with them. Kind of screwed up here. It's all about trying it out, and that's the same for the brushes I made. For example, this one is another brush. These ones are called, let me see, Luma brushes, and Luma means that it takes both the A and B colors. So these two colors that you normally have in programs, you normally have one or the other, and you can go from one to another. But in TVPaint, let me just lock this in here, because let me just lock this because it's annoying me a little bit. No, I unlocked the other one. Okay. This one's locked because it was annoying me and having to do all that stuff always. Anyway, yeah. So, for example, this is a Luma brush, and it takes two colors at once that are both displayed in the brush depending on the image. So it takes the value of the image that is on the brush, like the brush tip, and with that, it uses it to essentially take the color both colors that you choose to approximate on one value to be one color, and the darker values are the lighter or darker values become different colors, like the A or B can be colors. Kind of like when you choose a gradient, right? So yeah, you can, example, black and red does this, but now if I only change the reds to another red, does this. You can see the color variation in the brush strokes themselves. Let's go to this, for example, choosing a pinkish. This one, I don't know if I think it's blue. And yeah, this is interesting to create different textures as you paint. And I've got a lot of those in this collection. Here's a watercolory brush, and just stuff that you expect to see in Photoshop and Clip Studio, but that are unfortunately not present on TVPaint as you boot it up, or even in Brushpacks for TVPaint, because there's not that many and they're harder to find. But see, for example, this one, soft edge on one side, hard edge on the other. It's a very common thing you find in Photoshop brushes, but you don't really find that much in TVPaint. Here's another Luma one. I think, yeah, that's this. Then you got some hue brushes. Essentially a lot of things, but what I wanted to get into is that this entire collection that I made is divided into many different fields, into many different places. For example, I got the utilities that I spoke about, the main ones, that is normally what is open most of the time, but then I got more dedicated parts of this brush pack, like inking. So, this, like I said, I use a lot of the animation brush function, so this one is like from an anime that I've edited in, so that they all together make a different type of brush set, right? Let me see if I can zoom in. See, so you see I made an animation brush out of this, like imports the animation from an anime. You add contrast, you create color keys, and then you can do something like this. See, isn't it an interesting brushstroke? Like the variation, kind of like I explained it. It depends on the way you edit it. That's how you do brushes. The way the animation is displayed from beginning to end, the spacing, the properties, all that helps on making the brush. Even this wet profile thing is important. For example, if I reset it to being normal, then it looks like it's not as dry as if it were a real brush, for example. And maybe you prefer it this way, so you can alter it yourself, and then just don't forget to go here, right click, and say grab current tool whenever you change the parameters of my brushes to your preference, because it will stay that way. If you're unsure, then you can go to this bin window in here on the side. So these are other brushes that you make, but essentially these aren't shareable. These are just stuff that you have. For example, this one. Oh god, what's going on? I have no idea. Yeah. So this is just stuff. Normally I use it kind of like for Flash, a symbol library of older brushes. But you can use it to store your own as well. It's just that I think it's better to have here on the side because it's more, you can update it, you can actually put it on a file and stuff. Like it's the only reason I'm able to share it with you. So yeah, lots of ink brushes. You can do a lot with this. See, there's I took in account normally what people like, the possibilities of what you do with ink even in real life. So I did make a lot of them, and these are the curated brushes. There used to be a lot more. Oops. And yeah, it's all about the way you want to use them. Like I said, you can update them to be the way you want them. But you should try them out all at least, so you can choose. You can even choose which ones to keep. Maybe you think I have too many and you can just delete them. But I took in account a lot of things when I was making these, so you should try them out to see which ones you actually prefer, which ones you want to use. Maybe you can add them to the main panel above. You could only need to like copy the brush as it says here by right clicking. So this has been the inking ones. I have lots of different, there's lots of different ways you can use them. For example, I use this one a lot. It's just a slight, it's almost kind of like an art round, but there's a slight edge to it, like here there's like this area here that I really like. And yeah, so those were the inking brushes. Then I don't really need to explain much about erasers. Let's do this. But there's the different types of erasers people like. But here's the thing, at least in TVPaint 11, I don't really use the eraser brush that much, because if you have a Wacom pen, use the back of your pen, and it just uses whichever brush you're currently using as its eraser form. So I think that's far more useful than even in Photoshop, that the back of your pencil or the eraser button goes to a different separate tool. No, but here it just goes to the eraser version of your own tool, which I think it's very, very useful. So you're not always hopping between eraser and pen, and there are different brushes. You have to keep track of twice the amount of information. I think that's really cool. Anyway, they're there for anyone who wants. Then I got a blend section, and I think it's important to demonstrate this one a little bit because there's many different versions. So yeah, this is for color blending, paint blending, whichever you want to call it. A lot of them are dependent on the actual color you have in, but I made them to be quite different from each other. For example, this one is kind of a rougher way of doing things. This one is almost like a smudge. This one is it's more like what's the correct term? Maybe this one is more like a smudge. Maybe the other one is more like a drag. Same thing here. This one is kind of like you're painting with both of those colors at the same time. Actually, don't use that one much. Neither this one. Same for this one, but this one is rougher. This one kind of uses the add functionality. It's more like a texture because, sorry, not much like a texture, but like a filter you apply as you are dragging your brush over it. This one also uses color information from both of them. Oh yeah, these ones are like, makes it kind of look, it's not watery. It's just, it's like a palette knife that you go over oil, except this one has super high contrast. But I got other examples of this if you think that's one's too much. So it's a bunch of blending things and effects that kind of help you out on displaying things, putting a field next to another, and it's all about the way you use them. Again, like this one adds contrast, while this one completely blends them together. What is this one? Oh yeah, this, you know, pretty much blending as far as you know. Useful. Okay, so then we have the painting part of the equation. And once again, doesn't need much clarification. It's just that I made a bunch of brushes thinking about how you would use them to paint. Some of them take both colors, some of them only take one. Like this one is a softer version of some stuff I've shown before. You got these ones, the ones that have soft edges and hard edges on the other ones, quite useful. This different version of the hard, soft, round. There's essentially a bunch of brush tips that change the way the brush works, and some with different properties. But I essentially took in account you using this for painting, and not. That's why they're so different than the inking brushes. There's more of a opacity factor to them. They don't go from thick to thin as much. It normally starts thick already, and it's more on you using the resize functionality to paint with them, to change their size. And there's stuff like that all around. It's all about experimenting once again. So those have been the painting brushes. Like I said, I can do a lot of them. Then I got the painting Luma brushes. So if you remember right at the beginning, I explained that brushes in TVPaint can take two colors at once, and that's kind of what I did here. This is all about brushes that take two colors at once. So it's you can expect them not to be used so much so as a traditional digital. Did I just say traditional digital painting? Like a normal digital painting tool that you're used to, but one that will bring more texture into the mix, and those that you have to keep track of both colors if you want to have the desired effect. And yeah, just a bunch of versions of those, completely different brush tips with images that have different values, so it affects differently the brush itself. It is interesting to use this as a block-in for painting, for example. Might create some unexpected results that you might actually use later. And yeah, so that's the Luma brushes. They're more useful than they look like, but you also can't like be too reliant on them. Okay, so then I have airbrush size and airbrush flow. So if you know about, I don't think Wacom does this anymore, but they used to have like an airbrush like this one I'm using right now. They used to have an airbrush pen that has a wheel on it. So airbrush size, I have the wheel on that pen set to the size of the brush tip itself. So I'm not using the regular brush size altering keyboard shortcut. I'm using the one that's on the pen, and if I leave it on the minimum on the wheel on the pen, then as you can see it's very thin. But if I put it all the way up, I use the wheel all the way up, then it goes to its full size. and that's pretty much every brush in this part of the brush pack. Yeah, it's just that's multiple times with different brushes. Then I got Airbrushes Flow, which also uses the airbrush, but the difference is instead of altering the size, you alter the flow or the opacity, I guess, of the brush. So here's minimum, here's maximum. And it's a lot of them. This is a lot of brush types. Okay, minimum, maximum, minimum, maximum. And this is the half. This is like the halfway point. This is closer to minimum but not full. This is closer to maximum but not full. And there's a lot you can do with this. If you happen to have an airbrush, they don't really sell this anymore. So I don't know about that. But if you happen to have one, it's something to consider. Now, I got one called Fills. And Fills, it's just self-explanatory. You got one for 100% of opacity, one for 60%, 33%, and 15%. So if you like using the lasso tool, you can do it very fast with this. This is actually another thing that I actually got from someone else. Anyway, so then I got oh god. Yeah, this one is one that I made using random textures I found online and turning them into animated brushes, so that then I can use the best parts of it. This is a bunch of essentially half-tone generating brushes that I've made and called it Manga Studio, because they generate stuff that you normally see in manga. For example, this, right? A bunch of half-tone brushes. It's kind of gimmicky to use them like this, like the way I'm doing it, but if you mask something and then use this on top, it looks way better. Like, just imagine you have like a manga panel. Maybe I should demonstrate this here. Okay, so imagine this is like an anime character, right? This is our anime character. And yeah, let's make him. I don't want this to drag. The video is already long. I mean, it's a long brush pack. But okay, let's see. This is our guy. This is Kenstar. This is our anime protagonist. Okay, so I'm gonna mask this in a way, right? And then I'm only applying it to him. So, for example, could want the halftone only to affect him this way. You can change the brush mode of the halftone also, like this, like to dodge, and you do this. I think it's very useful. I use it a bunch. You know, just kind of like a normal mask. There's also a bunch of effects I added. There's ones that are less traditional, like noise brushes, but it is one thing to explore also, if you like it or not. There's ones that are more like full pages like this. It's just a matter of trying it out, see how you can best use it for the thing you want to do. Ultimately, I spent a bunch of time on it. Okay, Manga Studio. Then I got watercolor, which is, you know, kind of self-explanatory. Brushes that try to emulate watercolor. In TVPaint, that's not very successful. It's way harder to do it in TVPaint than in a lot of other programs. This one, for example, is by other user that did watercolor brushes in the past. Like I said, this thing is more... It's as much of a compilation as my own creation. And once again, I think these ones are better if you have something masked. Okay, so then I have Texture Bash. What is Texture Bash? Texture Bash is essentially, yeah, it's just a bunch of things that generate textures. For example, this one kind of generates a manga-like texture of a comic, grungy texture quality, cool for creating chaos, fast moving. I got also others are more like this. Others are more like this. You know, less extreme ones. But then I also have some absolutely crazy ones that just use a bunch of images that I found online, essentially, or that I had in my hard drive, that start generating these weird patterns, as you see. And I have a bunch of this, bunch of brushes like this. This is more, if you need something specific for, like, when you're doing a painting, almost like texture bashing, this is helpful for that. But I think it's more helpful so when you're like in an idea generating mindset, like you just start adding stuff on top of each other. This is a way to get there. There's so many effects, and especially if you do animation with blurs and glows and all of that, it's very easy to turn these weird texture things into something else. And I really like the some of these brushes. Let me see if I have one that I can better demonstrate. Okay, for example, this one. See? This one actually, some of them are actually Luma, like the other painting brushes I had. So you can quickly generate a lot of like nuanced detail like you're seeing here just by laying them on top of each other with the correct colors. So like this could be already something, and it could be rendered on, or it's itself being placed on top of something that is already rendered to pronounce it. And yeah, that's kind of it for this one. I got too many to like be showcasing all of them, but essentially it is a useful tool and you should try it out if you're gonna try my Brushpack. Okay, then I got FX stamps, which it's also kind of like a bunch of image tips that I used from my computer, but as you can see, they're more aimed at creating special effects and not so much textures. For example, by laying these things on top of each other, it kind of looks like fireworks or something like light caressing each other. There's more like clouds. This, I don't know. Got this one. This one is just comes actually with TVPaint. I didn't do anything. It's just the earth. But as you can see, just a bunch of effects you can generate just from dragging your cursor or your tablet stylus on the screen. So this also means lots of flame effects, like so. Wait, it's not going. Okay, lots of flame effects like so, like this, right? Gotta have the flame brush, gotta have the fire brush, roses, so weird stuff like this. Just a bunch of possibilities for you to try out. Where was that one? For example, look at this. What does this remind you of? Yeah, me neither. But that's the beauty of it. It's seeing what you can concoct with this weird stuff. What images might arise when you start combining them with each other. For example, these wavy patterns. Maybe they'll be good for something. These watery, serpentine, tubular thing. Like maybe in the right place at the right time can create some interesting effects. Like, I don't know, if I had like an orb masked and then I start using a bunch of this on different frames, you could do, I don't know, like Naruto's Rasengan or some stuff like that, and so on and so on. Just so too many to showcase them all. Now here's a really unique one. Dual brushes. So I got this idea actually from another like another user, but he only made one. I made a bunch of them essentially. So the whole idea is kind of like the Luma brushes. You go from A to B. In fact, all of these are Luma or Luma inverted brushes, but the big significant difference is that it's reliant on pressure. So the way they're made is you have one value at the beginning of the animation you use to make this brush, and at the other end you have a completely different value, the opposite. So bright to dark and stuff like that. And what actually happens is you can have something that when you press gently it does black, but when you press hard you go to a brighter color. Like I can actually make it go to white. Let me make my canvas a different color just so you can see it. Okay, see? Went to white just from selecting that. Yeah, this is, I made a lot of different versions for this, as you can see. It's all about trying them out. I personally find this useful to build stuff on, like when you're starting a drawing or a painting or whatever. It's a completely different way to draw when you start drawing with something that can be undone with your own strokes. Like I don't need to press Ctrl Z or to erase. I can just go over the same place and start drawing over it with just bigger pressure, just so it goes to a different value, which it feels like you're sculpting in 2D, if that makes any sense. And I really like this brush because of that. It feels like a process. I can't imagine doing something finished with this, but when you're starting something, it's like you're sculpting a drawing. And I think that's very useful. I use this a bunch when I'm out of ideas and I want to quickly generate some. So you might, you might be one of the same. Needless to say, this isn't just for a single color. You can have any other color on the end, like blue to red, right? Kind of makes like a purple for most of it, but it can be used for that, and I've used that way before. You can make more interesting sketches, perhaps. Who knows? It's definitely a possibility, but it's just fun to use. I like using these brushes a lot. It's an acquired taste, I guess. You probably have to practice a little bit just to get used to it, because I've personally never seen anything like this in other drawing programs, painting programs. So it might be kinda difficult to get used to it at first, but the end result, by result I mean your capacity to use this as a tool, I think it's worth it. I've made a few sketches that immediately get more personality and weight just because they were done with this brush. Okay, last it's the spray brush. Let's make the background white again, so it's easier to see. Okay, so yeah, self-explanatory. Lots of spray paint, different types of it. Some of them do use the Luma thing, where it's using both colors, and it's all about a matter of experiencing. Can do some cool blood splatters, I guess. Yeah, just a bunch of different spray brushes to try out, like this, like this. Oh, this one is actually a star. I forgot I had the, yeah, I made some star brushes. Let me use them. See, this is useful for creating night time, night space, and some of these also exist in the effects brushes one, the effect brushes. So it's mostly this. It's mostly a bunch of ways to spray over your drawing that has grain and noise and all of that. Just in case you need it. Just in case you need it. So yeah, wow, 34 minutes. I wish I could have been more concise. But I'd rather be making something that says everything I wanted to than leave something to say. This has been Rodin. I'm gonna try upload this now, my Brushpack, into Manga. And I hope you download it and use this if you're a TVPaint user. It's very useful for me. It kind of you can alternate the way you use TVPaint, and by that I mean for anything from your workspace to the brushes. It's a surprisingly versatile program, and people don't really use it in that purpose. I even do entire illustrations and paintings using TVPaint because of just the versatility and the brush creation. It is all very useful to me. I prefer it over most other programs, if not all of them. It's got some problems that makes me still go to Photoshop for some things, but overall, considering it's also a full animation program with a bunch of stuff that not even that its rivals normally don't tend to have, including like an FX stack and all of that. It's probably my favorite painting program. I love it, and the brush engine is one of the biggest things about it. The custom brushes, it makes working on it pretty joyful a lot of times. And these ones that I made, this big collection, has really helped me out knowing what to use at when, and made the whole process more fun. My personal favorite is the ink brushes, but in general I think, oh, and the dual brushes too. In general I think everyone can try using my brush set to have that experience of seeing everything that you can try in a program, which is normally what I do in Clip Studio or Photoshop. I download everything that I can to try and push the program to its limits. I want you to do that with my Brushpack in TVPaint and find a new way to work, to draw using this Brushpack, because there's probably a lot of things that you haven't considered that you can do in TVPaint. So yeah, I just wanted one Brushpack that feels complete, like a lot of Photoshop Brushpacks, that you can just download and become a definitive thing you use. So I think I may call this video the ultimate TVPaint Brushpack you need to download, and that's probably what I'm gonna do, because it's the one thing that can give you more than one click. That's YouTube. Everything, no nuance, all flash, no substance. So yeah, hope you download it and try it out. Tell me if you do. So see ya.